Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody to another gathering of the core community of practice, all Chevra Kadisha women all over the world, literally all over the world. We have women in Israel and the UK. We have women on the East Coast, West Coast, Canada. We have women in our group that are from South America. So it's really an international group. And the goal and the aim is to connect ourselves to each other, to mechazek each other, to inspire each other, to support each other, to learn with each other. We've had some wonderful classes with Rebbitzin Golchevsky. If anybody would like recordings, please tell me, I'll send them out again. I think that they're worth listening to and re-listening to, and I've written notes up about every single class, so I'm happy to send those out again. The panel conversations give us a sense of who we all are. And it's really humbling to be in everybody's presence. So today's lineup, the conversation is entitled, "What does Chevra Kadisha mean to me? How has it changed my life? How does it inform who I am and how I function in the world, because I'm engaged passionately with this mitzvah?" And so that's the topic that we're aiming to have a conversation about. And I'd love it if we could all participate at the end. We only in the past we've had 4 speakers. We have 3. Sadly, Nadia from South Africa is unable to present today, so at last minute that came to be, sadly. So I offered to step in and speak a little bit about how it's changed my life. So I will get my 10 minutes. So each of us, Irene, Robin, and I, will speak for about 10 minutes on the topic. And then hopefully we can have a little conversation about it, and we can hear from other people, learn about other people, listen to other people's experience and resonate with it, or be inspired by it, or just be curious about how other people view the work that they do. So I'm going to start with my lovely friend Irene in England. So Irene, you're a very devoted follower of this community, and I really so happy and so honored that you choose to do that. Thank you for coming to pretty much everything, all the classes and all the panels, and just wonderful presence. So thank you for that. Irene lives in London. She's been involved with the United Synagogues Volunteer Chevra Kadisha for over 30 years. She loves life, loves to be busy, volunteers heavily in her shul and her community. And before she retired, she was a dentist, working with children and adults with special needs, teaching, mentoring, and I'm sure there's a host more, but I'm going to now pass it over to our dear friend Irene in the UK, in London, who will speak to us for up to 10 minutes, please, about your work in Chevra Kadisha and what it means to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elissa. I have to admit that I knew very little about the Chevra and its work before I got married, and thought very little about it. I was much involved at that time with only the living part of life. But when my sister tragically died at the age of 38, not long after I had my first baby, I began to think much more about life and death. I rejoiced and gave thanks with the beginnings of life that I held in my arms, but at the same time, it was a lot to take in, with the sadness at the end of a life and what it was going to mean to our family. I thought to join the Chevra at that time, as it's so much a part of life, and I wanted to help with the religious rituals associated with it. And I thought it might answer my many questions, but of course, I really wasn't ready then. My parents died just a few years after this, and I was in my mid-30s, and my questions about death and dying increased. Because life is such a wonderful gift, and we all want to make the most of it, I was involved with lots of communal activities. And after a while, I enjoyed the executive of the Association of United Synagogue Women, where I learnt that the Chevra was in need of volunteers. It isn't for everyone, but I thought with my medical background that it was really my duty to do it. At that time, the work of the Chevra was pretty much hush-hush, and so it wasn't at all surprising that they needed volunteers. People just didn't know about it. I felt and do feel very privileged to be a member of our Chevra, and there was lots of support at the beginning, and indeed there still is. The training was friendly and it was all doable. As this is a personal account, I must mention my friend and trainer, Susan Koski, who remains my friend and mentor until this day. I have several mentors, but she was the first, so forgive me for not mentioning you all. When I first trained, Taharas were performed in what we called the Yard, which was a place in central London, and our equipment seemed fairly primitive compared to the machinery we are now so spoilt with. Teamwork was and is the thing, and because there were always 4 of us in a team with a leader, everything was done in partnership. If you haven't done a Tahara for a while, you don't want to let anyone down, even if you've forgotten something, but the whole team rallies round and everything goes smoothly. It's a flowing process. We all don't want to let down the Nifteris or the team, and we work doubly hard to make sure we attend on time and follow procedures, maybe more so than with other things in life. A bit about the way we work will make it clear to you how proud I am of our Chevra. The United Synagogue Women's Voluntary Chevra, Kadisha, is an umbrella for all the London synagogues, of which there are about 60. So it is a large Chevra. There are 2 cemeteries with 2 separate teams, and Bushi, the larger one, has approximately 100 volunteers. To be accepted on the Chevra, our ladies are asked to be Shabbat and Kashrut observant in public and are members of the United Synagogue. Many work for other Chevrot. The men work a bit differently. They work from each shul in small teams, and they help other shuls also. And they even work at night. And basically, they are more likely to know the person who has died. We operate on a rota system with everyone committing to a particular day, maybe a fortnight, on a weekly basis. That day, they'd be on call to work in a team to fulfill the mitzvah. Maybe they wouldn't be called, but they could be called to up to 3. Participation is about teamwork in performing the sacred task in a spirit of chesed. One might always work with the same team on the commitment day, but chances are that won't always work out. So to that end, our training is geared to us all working in the same way. We sometimes get a bit of information about the Nifteris as well, which is very helpful to us. We're also given shirim for support and knowledge by professionals who know about our work and rabbis and dayanim. We also have our special Rebbetzin, Erin Troy, who gives us great chizuk. We always strive to improve and perform our duties to the best of our abilities. We get together annually after the fast of Gedalia for our annual Suda, which is a purely social event provided by the United Synagogue as a thank you for our work. We have a few speeches and we say Tehillim for those who have died in the previous year. And we always end the Suda with a wish that we will be redundant the following year. The Chevra runs itself.
Thank you so much.
The Chevra runs itself with a chairman, a vice chair, and a committee for dealing with everyday management of the sessions and workings of the rota. I've been chair and vice chair before Lissy, our present chairman. In that role, which is normally for a 3-year period, one gets to know everyone and there's more opportunity to managing and help the workings of the process. It's a great learning experience. During my part as chairman, a new part of Bushi Cemetery was built, including the new Tahara rooms and halls. It was exciting, but it meant being involved with all the teething problems that we had then, which was quite interesting. However, our current chairman has had so much more to cope with during this pandemic. Since COVID started, the US ruled that over 70s should not work, but this summer we resumed. A lot had changed, and with PPI and various other new roles, we quickly accommodated. It was very noticeable that a lot of new people had joined, which really saved the day because otherwise the Chevra could not have operated. It is a wonderful thing that there is so much interest and commitment for this, and kol hakavod to everyone. It is so important to have younger members, otherwise there'd be no one to take over. The number of 70-year-olds is quite high. One very meaningful thing we do, as well as saying Tehillim at our Suda, is that on the morning of Tzom Gedalia, members of the committee visit graves of some of the recently buried and say Tehillim for them and again ask for Mechila. That really means a lot to me that morning. So I think you can see that our Chevra is well organized and we are very fortunate. It means a lot to me and I'm proud to be a member. I've learned so much about death and the dignity of the rituals around burial and mourning, and I feel it helped me to be a calmer person also. We feel that we are helping someone who can no longer help herself go smoothly on her very last journey of this world, and we want to make it perfect for her and not do anything which will make it less so. Obviously, in some cases at death, there are injuries and medical problems making the Tahara process much more difficult. But in the end, it is so lovely for us to see, when fully dressed, looking really good and even peaceful. And I feel honoured to take part in that religious ritual. It probably helped me to work better in a team and to be organised too. It is a very focused task. It's a one-off. And every time we have to get it right, we really feel that. I've made some very long and lasting friendships, and I'm very proud to work with such a wonderful set of people, which means such a lot to me. We don't talk about our work outside our sessions, of course, so it was indeed a proud moment last year when both the Men and Women's Chevra received a Teams Award from the Jewish Volunteering Network for all their work. This has given recognition and perhaps helped with recruitment. Being on the Chevra has taught me to love Tehillim also. I didn't have a lot of patience beforehand to say a lot of psalms, but now I find them most comforting. During these times, many of our COVID members, of our members were very upset when a Tahara could not be performed fully as we felt it wasn't the right Kavod HaMes, even though we were told we had done all we could. A similar feeling was also apparent among those who were unable to take part at all in the mitzvah because of age, vulnerability, or isolation. Many members feel they cannot come back yet, or in some cases not at all. And I think it's so lovely that our chairman, Lissy, wrote to us all to say that whether or not we came back to the Chevra Kadisha, we are all members and we would always be. This means a lot to everyone. I think this mitzvah is more about the body than we think. We all know that the body is far more than a covering for the soul. We are created in the likeness of Hashem, Tselem Elokim, and it is a mitzvah to take care of the body, which is a gift. And every morning when we say Modeh Ani, we thank Hashem, returning our soul to us. So the body and soul are indivisible partners in human life. I like the symbolism of knowing that we care for the body and the soul at the end of life. The Midrash says that the soul is a guest in the body. The body is holy and needs respect and protection. I enjoy reading also the Kabbalistic insights into parts of the body, including the symbols and gematria related to the Tahara. Another reason to safeguard the beauty of our mitzvah is to know that the soul is happy that the body has been well prepared. We know the soul is sad to leave the body and hovers around for some time. In the book of Kohelet, we read the words that the dust returns to the earth from which it came, and the ruach, or spirit, or soul, returns to God who had given it. The partnership concept is illustrated in the famous story from Sanhedrin, where the Emperor Antonius tries convincing Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi that the body and soul can each blame each other for the sin and thereby excuse themselves. So Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi countered this, telling the famous parable, two guards in an orchard, one blind and one lame, and together they were able to steal apples from a high tree. When caught, each claimed they could not have done it, but the gardener knew and placed the lame man on the back of the blind man, and so they are judged as one. Similarly, Hashem judges man. What is more, our souls are intertwined so that all Jews have a connection with each other. This is to show that while our bodies are independent, our souls are interconnected. This can be taken in a positive or negative way. This story will show the connection. It comes from a book called Small Miracles of Love and Friendship, and tells the true story of a young child who woke from a nightmare. It was understandable, as she'd fallen into the swimming pool a month before, and her mother had dragged her out. She was unable to do successful CPR, and her mother, who was there, the child's grandmother, prayed to Hashem and said, take me instead of her. Meanwhile, their neighbor across the road came over. He had been a lifeguard, and he managed, with the Heimlich maneuver, to save the child. The grandmother prayed again to God with thanks. Everything was now back to normal, except that the grandmother, who had always been well, now became sick, and a short while later she passed away. The nightmare was real, and the child told her mother it was about the fall. I know, said her mother, I dragged you out. No, said the child, it was Grandma. There are no coincidences. We don't believe they're coincidences. This was about linking souls. At the Lavoya and during the Iska, we say that we hope the soul of the deceased will be bound up in the bond of eternal life. This relates to the linking of souls. On every visit that I go to the Tahara room, whether or not I visit any graves that day, my thoughts are always drifting to friends and family who have passed away. I welcome those feelings and memories as I appreciate every day that I have been granted. And at the same time, I also pray for peace for all the neshamas with Hashem. In short, the important mitzvah the Chevra undertakes is one so close to my heart. And if I can just end, as our process is with a lot of cleaning, so I'll end with the words of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, as written in Avodah Zarah 20b. This is the translation. Cleanliness leads to abstinence. Abstinence leads to purity. Purity leads to saintliness. Saintliness leads to humility. Humility leads to fear of sin. Fear of sin leads to holiness. Holiness leads to Hashem and to the revival of the dead, to Tchias HaMesim. May our work lead to the coming of Moshiach and Tchias HaMesim. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. Whoever's got your camera on could do a virtual applaud. Wow, Irene, that was really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like I have to go listen to that again a couple of times, pick up all the wisdom that you gave us and a little bit of insight into who you are and how you think and what being on Chevra Kadisha means to you and how it's evolved over time, and just really pleasure to listen to you. So thank you so much for all of that. I feel like there's a lot of insight into how the Chevra Kadisha works in England and how it runs and being part of it, and really, really lovely. Thank you so much. So I'm hoping that we can have some conversation afterwards. I'm now going to invite our second speaker, who is Robin Myerson. Robin lives in Arizona. So I was thinking, maybe we'll get somebody from South Africa, we'll get somebody from England, we'll get somebody from the West Coast, we'll like do it for sure, like make it international. Hold on, there's somebody waiting in the waiting room. So I think we sort of accomplished that a little bit. Robin is a life coach. Robin, you sent me an amazing CV and bio, and I probably will not do you justice because I want to hear you more than I want to take up all the time, but you're amazingly accomplished person in many, many different ways. Life coach, international speaker, award-winning author of several books, strategic planning and life coach for Rabbi Niven's Chaburas, founding director of Project Inspire in Arizona, guiding hundreds of volunteers to learn and grow together and lead trips to Israel. West Coast director of NASC, so that's very pertinent to all of us, the National Association of Chevra Kadishas, and married for over 30 years, 5 children, 3 grandchildren, very busy lady. Thank you for taking time, and we'd love to hear your words on how being on the Chevra Kadisha has changed you and what it means to you.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's morning time in Arizona. And the reason I have the Hebron behind me, the picture, I'm not there, is because the Chevra Kadisha has changed my life. And I'll tell you how in many, many ways. I'm a Baal Tshuva for the last maybe, I think, 20 years. And I did not even hear of what the Chevra Kadisha was. I had no clue what it was. And about 15 to 18 years ago, I was asked to volunteer in my journey of becoming observant. As I was Shomer Shabbos, I was asked to volunteer to do a mitzvah. And I didn't ask what the mitzvah was. I just got in the car because I trusted the Rebbitzin who was inviting me. And I got in the car and I said, well, where are we going? And she said, well, we're going to go prepare a lady to be buried. And I said, what? I don't have a degree in this. I don't know how to do this. She says, don't worry. I'm going to teach you. It's a very holy and sacred experience. So I went and I watched and I learned and I helped. And it truly changed my life. And as I was driving home afterwards, I called my parents and my mom and my dad, and I told them what I did, and they were like, wow, that's incredible. And they had never heard of it either. And so that was the beginning. And that night, when I went to sleep, I woke up the next morning and I had a dream. And I know this might sound a little woo-woo for everybody, but maybe some of you have had it, you just don't share it publicly, but I feel safe sharing it with you in this group. I had a dream. The lady that I had done the tahara on, she was in my dream, and she sat up on the metal table. She sat up and she said, you did a good job. Thank you. And I woke up and I was like, whoa, okay, this is really wild. And so for the next many years, being involved in the Chevra Kadisha, it is a very sacred and holy experience. And from that, I learned to see the soul. And the reason I have this picture of Hebron behind me is because part of my life is dedicated to Kirov. Because I grew up in a secular home and background and became observant, I wanted to share all of the beautiful Torah that I have learned. And so I started Project Inspire Arizona, and I take people to Israel and I teach them about the afterlife. I teach them about burial. I teach them about the importance, because cremation is such a horrific thing, and it's you won't believe it, but it's like 50 to 70% of the Jewish people are choosing cremation. And so because I worked in the corporate world and I did strategic planning and marketing, I decided God gave me these gifts of marketing and strategic planning. And then I'm going to use my skills that God gave me, and I'm going to create marketing materials and a book and a website and PowerPoints, whatever I can to get the word out to the world that they must choose burial, because the afterlife is real. The soul is real. The soul lasts forever. And please, please, please don't choose cremation. And so, it's my hesed that I do like 24/6. And really the last 9 years, and I'll tell you why, has totally changed my life. I'm on call 24/6 to help people around the world when they have crisis in their families or in their communities where someone is choosing cremation. And I help the families with guiding them through the process of choosing burial. Sometimes we are successful and sometimes we're not. It just depends on how far along in the process and just what the family situation is. We've gone to court. I've had lawyers involved. I've been on call. I've helped people during Yontivs. Literally a few minutes up to Yontiv, and I've just dedicated my life to this because it has changed my life. I've done Tahara trainings, and I even have brought Rabbi Zone from the National Association of Chevra Kadisha out to our community in Arizona to train the community, so people, even who are not in the Chevra Kadisha, can just understand and learn what the process is. And I found that it's very important to explain, because even though it's sort of a mystery or a secret or something, I want people in the community to understand what it is, so they understand how beautiful it is, so that they can share this wisdom with other people. But then along the way, this is where the big miracle happened. And I wanted to share this story. Maybe some of you do know the story, but the reason I have to share it is because this is why I dedicate all my hesed and teaching and marketing to this cause. So while I was in the Chevra Kadisha, I contacted one of my aunts who lives in Las Vegas. I talk to her about 3 or 4 times a year. I have I have 18, I'm one of 18 cousins. Even though I don't come from a religious background, we have quite a few cousins, and we stay in touch. And it's just my brother and I that are more involved usually in the family, but I stay in touch with everybody. And I just called my Aunt Myra just to say hi, how are you? She's actually from London, and but she lives in Las Vegas. And I just called her, and she said, "Oh, are you calling because you heard the news?" And I said, "What news?" And she said that her husband had passed away that morning, and I had no idea. Like I said, this is the first miracle. We don't believe in coincidences. And I had called that day, and it was Shushan Purim. And I was in shock. I said, "No, I just called to say hello. I'm so sorry. When's the burial going to be?" And she said, "Well, we're not religious like you guys. We're not going to do a burial." And, you know, being in the Chevra Kadisha and seeing the beauty and the holiness and the sacredness of it, I tried to explain it to her in that moment, but you know, we're in the moment. It was very hard. So I called my cousins. I explained to them. I said, "You have to bury your dad. You have to bury my uncle." And they didn't know what to do. They had no bar mitzvah, no bat mitzvah, no. I think one of them had a huppah at the wedding. You know, you can see very, very far distant from Judaism. And so here's where some of the miracles happened. The first miracle was that cremation is not fast. You know, people think, oh, it's fast. It takes like 24 hours and it's done. But it's not. My uncle was in this crematorium for 2 weeks, and it can even be longer. So I told them that, and I was begging and I was praying. And then the first miracle was that he wasn't touched, because during the cremation process, they cut out, you know, we're so gentle in the Tahara. We just gently wash and we gently wrap and we say Tehillim, but a cremation is where they cut out the pacemaker, they cut out the artificial knees, and it's violent and gruesome. And so the first miracle was that they didn't touch my uncle, which is just a huge miracle. Then the second miracle was I decided, since my cousins weren't moving so quickly and making a decision, because they were just completely sort of panicked, they couldn't decide what to do. And so I gave tzedakah to Chevra Lomdi Mishnah, and because it's customary to study Mishnayos, and if you rearrange the letters of Mishnayos, you get neshama. And it's a beautiful custom to study Mishnayos for the departed. And I told the Rabbi Hagen's on the line, and I said, you know, this is a situation, please study Mishnayos for my uncle. And I didn't tell my cousins I was doing it because they don't know what Mishnayos is. So I gave the tzedakah on a Tuesday. And here's the second miracle that happened was my cousins met in a restaurant in Las Vegas to decide what to do with their dad. They still hadn't progressed with what they were going to do. And they go into the restaurant, and my cousin Valerie, who's the executor of the situation, there's a fireplace actually in the restaurant, and she runs out of the restaurant because she just completely just distraught. And I call her and I said, "What happened? Did you guys finally decide to do the burial?" She said, "Yes, I finally decided I'm going to do the burial. And here's the next miracle." I said, "Well, what changed your mind?" And she said, "Because my father came to me in a dream and said, 'Get me out of here.'" And I said, "When was this?" And she said, it was Tuesday. And I said, "Which Tuesday?" Because, you know, this is like 2 weeks already. And it was the same Tuesday that I had given tzedakah for Mishnayos. So I started crying, and she starts crying, and she agrees to do the burial. And then the third miracle, the next miracle that happens, which is even way more incredible, and why the Chevra Kadisha has changed my life, is that I flew into Las Vegas to the cemetery for the burial. And my Auntie Myra, even though she didn't go to seminary, she didn't go to day school, you know, she didn't have any Jewish background, education at all. We're all Jews, and we're all one, and we're all connected, and we all have holy souls. And she said to me at the cemetery, "Robin, this is your calling. God is going to repay you." And that's just such a weird thing to say at a cemetery. And I'm like getting goosebumps now. But I was like, "Okay, Auntie, I know I love you. I just like a weird thing to say." And fast forward a couple of months later, I was 44 at the time. I was not feeling so well. And my youngest child was sick. 6 years old, and we had no baby clothes in the house, no crib. And I took a pregnancy test, and the stick was pink. And here's the miracle, and why the Chevra has changed my life. My son was born on the first yard site of my Uncle Arnold. And it's such an open miracle. And my auntie said, this is your calling, God is going to repay you. And it was, measure for measure. And I mean, we don't do this for that, but it was such an open miracle. I said, and my son now is 9. I said, I have to dedicate all my hesed to the Chevra Kadisha. I have to spread the word. So I wrote some books. I wrote like a children's curriculum for teachers to teach about the next world. I wrote a book for adults called From This World to the Next. It's miracle stories, which are mine, but also other ladies and men who have amazing miracle stories themselves. There's so much miracles out there about the afterlife because it is real. Even though we can't see it, it's real, and we can maintain a connection with our spirit, our loved ones after they've departed through doing charity and mitzvahs in their merit. And so I volunteer for the National Association of Chevra Kadishas, and I set up a website called Peaceful Return, which is educational information for the non-frum people so that they can learn. And so you can refer all your friends and family to it so they can learn about burial. But then NASC also hired a community outreach director on staff, Yael, and she created a website called Last Kindness, which is to help the frum people reach out and love their fellow Jew and teach them about this. And we, like Irene said, we're all one. And whatever happens to one Jew affects us all. And so that's why I do the kiruv, to teach them. And that's why we need the frum people, and we need all the ladies in the Chevra Kadisha to teach others. And we need to give ourselves hizak that what we're doing is so holy and special. And this event, this meeting of all these wonderful ladies is so important to give us hizak and to spread it to others. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to have the conversation with maybe a secular loved one or a secular neighbor, just in a gentle, loving way, just say, this is the loving thing to do. Please
To do that. Sorry.
So that's just how I want to end, by saying that please share these principles and these practices with everybody that you know in a gentle, loving way, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Robin. Well, there's also a lot to listen to your story and your story. I've heard your story before, but it's always very inspiring to hear it again, and to acknowledge these supernatural things that happen around this area of death and afterlife and souls and disembodied souls and things that happen and coincidences and not coincidences. So thank you. Nadia is unable to speak, and ordinarily I would have found somebody else, hopefully, to take over the spot, but it was so last minute. Somebody said to me, well, why don't you just do it? So it's interesting, because I thought, well, what I'm going to say, everybody's going to have said already, and actually you haven't. So it's kind of freed me up to give a different perspective on Chevra Kadisha. So some of you might know that I had a young child. My first baby died. He was he's a 5.5-month-old baby. And he died. I was in my mid-20s. And again, like Robin, I was Baal Tshuva. I had never heard of Chevra Kadisha. And my friends came to me and they said, we'd like to wash your baby. And I didn't know anything about what they were doing and what it was going to be. And whoever has not muted them, there's somebody. Sorry, if it's possible, you could mute yourselves as you're not, because there's a little bit of background noise. Anyway, so my friends washed him, and I asked them about it when I was a little bit recovered from that traumatic loss, what they did and what he looked like. And I don't know if they told me the truth, but what they told me made me feel so grateful to them that they took care of him and they washed him, and I don't know, did they kiss him? I don't know. Did they pray for his soul to ascend into the highest alamos? I don't know. But it gave me such a feeling of nechama, even though I couldn't find nechama anywhere. There was nowhere really after you lose a baby or a child to find peace forever. But that they took care of him was huge. So knowing there was such a thing as a Chevra Kadisha was always in my mind. Thank God we had subsequent children who are, thank God, healthy. And I started working on a Chevra Kadisha about 20 years ago. And I think that what I'm very, very, very aware of on a regular basis is the confrontation with mortality. I live in Rhode Island. There's very few members of our Chevra Kadisha, so we're called on a regular basis to take care of the women in our state. and even southern Massachusetts. So we're pretty busy as a Chevra. And rarely a week goes by or that we're not called upon to take care of somebody. And they're people we know. They're people, mothers, friends, children of it's a small community. We know many of the people that we wash, and it's so humbling. And it's so, you're so aware, I'm sure you all are, of our gift of life. You know, Irene spoke about Modani in the morning, and I'm sure we all have that heightened awareness of how miraculous it is that we're alive, that the gift that we're given, that we have something to do. You know, Robin, you talked about how you take the gift of your life and the experiences you've had and say, you know, I need to give back. And it was interesting. We did have a panel conversation about how people got into Chevra Kadisha. And I come from a place of understanding how meaningful it is for somebody to wash your loved one. And so it's sort of a little bit, in the beginning for me, was a little bit of a give back, right? I can do this. I'm a nurse by training, something I'm not so squeamish. It's something I have the strength perhaps to do. And I do have the strength to do it. And I'm so aware in the funeral home of my vitality. Maybe you are, you know, when you pick up somebody's hand to take off their nail polish, and your blood is pulsing through your body, and you have the capacity to see, and the eyes and the ears to hear. And like, we're so full of life in a place where they're juxtaposed with death. And then knowing the soul's there, and some of the teachings that we've got from Rebbetzin Golchevsky, which I'm happy to share again and again and again, because it highlights this soul being there in the room with us, and the root souls coming to meet the neshama, and the pre-deceased ancestors of this person coming to greet them. And when we walk in, we bring the Shekhinah with us. The Shekhinah is coming with us to bring the Nifteris to a place of tahor, that it's a lot going on. And the more I learn about it, the more in awe I am of being that messenger, and being in that room and being able to do that, and being humbled by it, and being grateful for the opportunity to do this, that I can do it, that I want to do it, that I have the opportunity to do it. And so I feel like it's made me very grateful on many different levels, on a regular, ongoing basis. The other day I walked in the woods, and on the East Coast here, it is so beautiful. The trees are yellow and red and orange and green, and the lights, the sun shining through, and the leaves are dropping off the trees. And it's just, you want to weep. It's so beautiful. I feel like I want that more of that awareness of how beautiful our life is, and how beautiful our world is, and have gratitude for that. And I think it comes from that juxtaposition of being in a place where there's death. And I think about, one day I'll be on that table. And what will the women, who will they be? Will they be my friends, the ones I'm on teams with now? Will they be the ones who are washing me? And will they say these pasukim that are so powerful for me? And will my soul be watching? Like, I don't know if you all are, if this is just me being weird, but I think about being on that table, and what my experience will be when, please God, not for many, many years, but it's a reality, right? We're all going to die, but we have life now. But I think about that, so I'm aware of that on some level. There's a really lovely story about this man called, his name was Michael Collins, and I assume that nobody has heard of Michael Collins, but Michael Collins died, and before he died, he wrote a memoir, and he was one of the 3 astronauts that went up on that first the first rocket that went up to the moon. And he was the guy that stayed in the rocket. The other 2 guys got to walk on the moon, and we all know their names, like Neil Armstrong and Michael Aldrich, right? These were the guys that walked on the moon. Well, Michael Collins was he was not the guy that did that. And he said, I was very happy to be in the rocket. I got to help. I got to be part of it. And he wasn't looking for the accolades. He wasn't looking to be known. He was just happy with his role. And I was thinking about that, because we're in a world where there's a lot coming at us. And I think all of us on some level are, you know, I don't know when you do your taharas, but we tend to do them at night. So it's all like secretive, you know, it's like in the middle of the night, we go to the funeral home, nobody knows. And it's all very, very secret. And there's something about that. There's something about the intimacy of the mitzvah that we're doing that can ground us, that can keep us very centered, and grounded, and knowing we're doing this holy mitzvah and that we're doing it, and hopefully we're doing it to the best of our abilities. And if we don't, I like that, Irene, that the people go to the kavarim of the deceased to ask forgiveness, because sometimes you're rushed or you're something and you don't do it in the way, and then you go away and you think, I should have done it differently, or I don't know if you feel like that, it's just me, but if you don't do it perfectly every time, you have a feeling of like, I don't get to do that one again. What do you do with that? So maybe it's a lesson to go to the kever and ask forgiveness again. Anyway, so those are some of my thoughts, of not taking my life for granted, for being grateful for my life, for grateful for the people who've taken care of my loved ones, aware of Tchias HaMesim, aware that we're part of a continuum. We're a little blip in the whole big story of the world, and that we're in this one little moment, but there's a much bigger trick to transcend out. And we're preparing the Nifteris for Tchias HaMetim, then that kind of gives you a context for, it's not, there's much bigger picture going on than just what's happening in our lives, in our little corner of the world, that we're part of something much bigger. And I think that's very empowering, to feel like we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, part of this big story. So I think those were really basically the things I wanted to say, that the awareness that we have of our gift of life, awareness of the strength, feeling very alive, very vibrant, very strong, feeling very blessed, happy and joyous to have such a opportunity to give in this way. So those are some of my thoughts. And so now I'd like to open up the floor for the next 10 minutes. If people have any comments or anything they'd like to share, or even if it's repetitive, please repeat anything that jived with you or resonated for you. Tell us who you are, where you live, and tell us what your thoughts are, please. We really want to hear from you more than from me. So I would love you to unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and just make a comment or a thank you, or this is what it made me think. There's no wrong answers, there's no right answers, there's just community, connection, and being together.
I'm happy to ask a question, Elissa.
You have to introduce yourself, Shelly.
Hi, this is Shelly Dembe from Columbus, Ohio. And this is really such a holy hour to hear people's words and sharing. And it's just, in a world where there isn't enough connection, I feel like Elissa is giving us this platform to really open ourselves up in really just such a beautiful way. It's like brings tears to my eyes. Just, it warms my heart. With that subject, I'm addressing Robin with the work she's doing, and I hear the importance of, with love, with kindness, with gentleness, to approach someone who might be on the trajectory of planning a cremation. And I actually, this is really hitting home for me, because I have a sibling that, is a staunch atheist, and I know that he's not well, and he's made it clear that he wants to be cremated. And the reason that we've been able to have a relationship is that he knows I don't judge him, and he knows that I don't put my viewpoints on him. So in thinking about the future, who knows what will happen, but if and when that comes up, it's very hard for me to imagine having that conversation, because our relationship is based on mutual respect and the fact that he doesn't feel threatened by my religious values coming into his world. So it's just like, it sounds good, but then when I think about doing it, it's just overwhelming to me.
Sure. I'm sorry you're going through this, and there is a way to potentially help. The highest respect that you can give to your brother, and he does, you express that you're respecting one another. The highest respect is to do the burial. So some questions to ask are, like, first of all, does he have a wife? Does he have children? He does have a wife and he does have children. Okay. So they are the ones that have control. So the way potentially is to discuss with the wife and the children, that this is the highest respectful thing. I want a place to visit, explain, depending on, ask him exactly why. Why does he want cremation? Because depending on the why is the answers that we can provide. So do you know why? Do you know why he wants cremation?
Well, first of all, he doesn't believe in an afterlife. He doesn't believe in any kind of a creator, and none of them do. So why would he feels strongly that it's his decision, and that this is, I don't know exactly why cremation, but there's definitely a pushback to anything that is of a religious nature.
Sure.
So
So
yeah,
I get that. I get that a lot. People say, I don't believe in the afterlife.
right.
So, and I'm an atheist, and when you're dead, there's just, that's it. So one of the things you could try is that, burial is a safe choice, because what if you're wrong? Do you really know? It's a safe choice,
Right.
because you can't undo a cremation. You could undo a burial, if you really wanted to, you could undo a burial, but you can't undo a cremation. So number one, you could say burial is a safe choice. You can also, when he talks about like it's his decision, there's another answer to that too. Well, his body, just like we let's say we borrow money from somebody, right? But we have to return it. So his body doesn't really belong to him. He might not believe this, but his body doesn't really belong to him, and we need to return it. Now that might not fly with him, but another approach you could take is, there in Israel, when there are soldiers that have been kidnapped or died, the Israeli government will go to great extent to go to collect the dead body and bury it. We don't have to get into politics here, but exchanges of terrorists, exchanges of huge amounts of money just to get the body back, to bury it. Because this is what we believe, because we believe the body is so special and that we want to bury it. And another approach is, if you think about if there's a hurricane or a flood, and objects get destroyed, but what do? We go to rescue those objects. We go to rescue a Torah, we go to rescue the books, we go to rescue the items from the flood and the fire, whatever the situation is, because they're treasure to us. So you could say that, you're a treasure to me, and what do we do with our treasure? We bury it, we don't burn it. So it is his decision, obviously, but he might not have enough information, clearly, and the website Peaceful Return, it has a lot of the answers that I was just explaining. But if there's, the highest goal is not shalom bias between the families. The highest goal is to give his soul eternity. And it is. And even if it says it in his will that I want to be cremated, you don't have to follow the will. You don't. So I would, if you can, address this now before, because it's way harder afterwards. And on my website, there's a burial form, and also on the endcremation.org, there's a burial form. It's a legal form, and it just says, I give power of attorney to my sister to take care of it. I mean, you could offer money. There's different approaches.
I think
Well,
one of the
thank you
things
so
we should
much.
do maybe is take this and make this a session, because I think there's a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
of aspects to talk about. We could talk about this for an hour, so let's do that. I wonder whether other people would like to share their experiences of being on Chevra and how it makes them, how it changes who you are. How have you changed your, go. You have to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to everybody, please.
No, I only wanted to add something. I've just been overwhelmed by the amazing speakers. My name is Flora Frank. I'm from Edgware, also from Irene. It's a very dear friend, and Susan's the same Kadisha. I've been in Israel for a long time, so I've been out of it. But that's not what I wanted to say. I wanted to, first of all, thank you all so much. Each one of you in your own rights have been so powerful and uplifting and giving such a lot of hope. I thank you. And Robin, the work you're doing is amazing. I wanted to say that quite a few months ago, I cannot remember the program, but Rabbi Rashi Simon from London, he did a whole thing on cremation. Maybe you were involved in it. I don't think it was through Jake Hall. I can't remember. I made notes, and it was along the lines you said. I mean, yours was very, very beautifully put. And if only we could find that. His name is Rabbi Rashi Simon, and I know he works at the London Beth Din. He's the registrar there, because I'm involved with them. But that's so. Thank you. I just wanted to share that with you, Robin, because it's very, very, very important. You said, and I have been involved. One, I was successful. One, I was not successful. And the one in which I was not successful, I had Diane Amor Zatzal from the Sephardi Bet Din, and also from Manchester. Everybody, Diane Aaron, we just couldn't, and it was the most painful thing for the parents to see their daughter being cremated. But I want to just add something. Irene brought it up. We know that we do go, not all of us, but some of us go on the morning of Som Gedalia when we have our Seudah to ask for Mechila. We Sephardim, and I also belong to the Sephardi Chevra Kadisha, we actually say it after the whole kavura, and we before the kavura, after the tahara, we actually say mechila, mechila, mechila 3 times. We say that, and we have to say it with conviction. And I also say a little pasuk, which comes from the book of Devarim, from the book of Deuteronomy, which says, "V'kiper admato amor," that the land will atone for its people, being the earth when we put the earth on. So I just want to say that's what we do, and that's why we Sephardians do not have the minhag of going to visit the Kavarot. But I think the minhag to visit is beautiful. So I want to thank Irene, I want to thank Robin, and I want to thank you, Elissa, because it was fascinating. I want to tell you something. I'm in Israel, and I rushed back to my friend in Netanya. We were having a lovely evening with 10 of us. I said, I'm sorry, I have to leave now. I have to hear my Irene, first of all. And none of you was down. It was just fantastic. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
For the soul,
You know,
it was just wonderful.
We do that. We say that admato amo when we put the sand on.
Yes.
Right, as part of
I don't think we do it out in Chevra Kadisha. We don't actually. I say it quietly always. I don't want to make a business, but I always say it. But I say it quietly. But we don't say mechila. We had a Sephardi lady. I can't remember her name. If Susan is still on, she will remember her. She used to say it. So when she was around, I could say it, with gusto. But normally I say it quietly. No, because we have to follow the minhagim of our Chevra.
Yep.
We do say it when we close the coffin.
We don't stop.
So this is just like a second one on that particular day for the recent burial.
Yes. It
I'll,
was just like.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, Fran.
No, you go ahead.
There's a little bit of chat going on here, so I'll send out on the next, when I send the recording, I'll send everybody's contact information, so don't worry about that. I can do that. I can facilitate network, because that's part of what we're here for. We're networking, and we're raising everybody's boats, and we're trying to just do the best we can. I'd love to hear from somebody who hasn't yet.
May I ask Robin, did she know about this the program that was on cremation? It was a full hour.
I spoke on that program, and the recording is actually the recording is on the website. I'm pretty sure on peacefulreturn.org.
What is it called? Can you tell me? Can you remind me? I've got the notes, but I'd like to listen to it again.
You send it to me, Robin, and we'll send it out.
Okay.
Because other people might like to watch it also. So Flora, I'll send that out in the recording. I'd love to hear from somebody else before we close. We're a couple of minutes till closing, but please say hello. Who are you? Where are you? What do you think? Hello, Caroline. Where are you?
I'm actually in London and actually in Israel at the moment, but I wanted to say that the Chevra was something that took me quite a while to get allowed to be involved in, because Arshul Norris Lee hasn't got very many people who know about Chevra Kadisha, and so it actually took my rabbi to hunt somebody down to get us on there, to get us in. And I'm very passionate that people understand that how important Tahara is to being a Jewish person. And it really makes me sad and happy when we get details of people who have requested to be buried by Tahara, by doing the proper tahara. When they come from all over the country in the countryside, they come back to us. And I feel that that's such a wonderful thing that we have, that, you know, you're born a Jew and it's lovely to die a Jew. And no matter what, we are part of a community. I'm not as religious as other people, but I take being part of the Chevra really to my soul. And I really feel that it's a wonderful addition to my life. Really, I know that sounds ridiculous because it shouldn't be a benefit to me, but I really feel when I leave the cemetery, I feel like I'm getting something back from what we do.
Definitely, 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 for sure. Okay, one last comment before we close off. Anybody else want to say anything, please?
Hi, I have
Hi.
never spoken up before. I'm Ann Shulman from Columbus, Ohio, and I just want to say that these discussions are inspiring, amazing, just, you know, they're unbelievable. So I'm so grateful for them and for the people who talk. I feel like it's a win-win every time I listen in. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Putting this.
I don't know why I didn't stop the recording. Okay, so thank you, Anne. Really, it's lovely to see your face and to hear your words of affirmation. And yes, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I know many people will listen to the recording afterwards. I know that for sure. And if you would like to join on Tuesday, Rebbetzin Kolchevsky's teaching the second part of 3 on the Pesukim that we say. If you'd like to join that, be in touch with me. And if you have other ideas of programming we could do, other panels we could have, I think it's definitely, we have to have Robin come and do a session perhaps that we could include. And I'm working with some other ideas that I have in my mind, but I'd love to hear from other people because I want it to be a grassroots. I want you to tell me what would be uplifting to you, what helps you in your practice, what kinds of things do you want to learn, what kinds of things are you curious about or you have questions about, not so much the doing, because that's Rabbi Sohn's territory or the NAS territory, but not exactly the nuts and bolts, but like more of the spiritual and those sorts of things that we seem to be kind of falling into, that those aspects, or how we can create a support group for each other and how we can network with each other and enjoy each other. And one of the things actually, just as a closing comment, is that when I went back to England for my father's funeral, it was a number of years ago, 5 years ago. And I don't really know that many people in England anymore. Now I'm meeting all my new friends, but I didn't know people. And I was at the cemetery and this rabbi from the Chevra Kadisha came up to me and he said, I'm, your MC for today. I'm your Chevra Kadisha rabbi. I'm gonna, and he said, do you remember me? And I looked at him and I went, no, I don't remember you. And he said, well, we were in youth group together when we were teenagers. And I remember coming to your house because we were on a committee together and he used to come to my house for meetings, and he met my father and he knew my father and he said, I chose to wash your father. He came up to me and told me that. What are the chances? I was like, thank you so much. It was it felt like a wink or a kiss or whatever it was. It felt like a really lovely thing to actually know in a country where I'm not so connected anymore, that somebody I knew and somebody who knew my father had washed him. So wow, things do come back in this world sometimes. So I was very happy to hear that. So anyway, on that note, I wish you a wonderful week and a wonderful rest of Cheshvan, and stay tuned for future programming. If you're on the call on Tuesday at noon, again, noon Eastern Standard Time for the Rebbetzin Kolchevsky class on the Pesukim that we say. And somebody wrote a card, I've been on Chevra for 40 years. I know how much benefit we get, even though it's non-reciprocal. Please carry on. Okay, great. Yes, we will carry on. And you can unmute yourself, say goodbye, and stay tuned. If you want to be on the WhatsApp chat and you're not, then send me your phone number. I'll add you to the WhatsApp chat. That's only WhatsApp materials going on that chat. It's questions or speakers or things that are questions people have. Have a good day, rest of your day.
Wonderful, fabulous. Thank
Peaceful
you.
and mitzvahs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elissa. Thank you so much.